Awesome. Yeah, recording.
Sweet. So hey everybody, I'm super excited to be here, and we're gonna go through a web deployment workshop with Heroku. It's gonna be super beginner friendly. You guys are just gonna be able to follow along, or if you choose not to follow along, that's totally fine. I'm gonna provide you guys with this document I made in which all the commands are listed in the order that you should follow them in order to make sure the project works on your end. But without further ado, I'm just gonna share my screen and put in the chat if you have any general questions about Heroku before we get started. And throughout the event, I'll just be answering them one by one. So I'm just gonna share my screen now. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so here we go. So welcome everyone once again to the Web Deployment 101 workshop hosted by SFU Surge in preparation for StormHacks 2022. And today we're gonna be looking at technologies such as React, Git, Node, Express, and of course, Heroku. So let's get started. So before we do that, just a little bit about myself. So my name is Shubham, and I'm a fourth-year computer science and business major at Simon Fraser University. I have about 2 years experience working as a software developer, and I'm currently working as a full stack web and Android developer at Salix Medical. And fun fact about me, I've traveled to over 20 plus countries. So I just love traveling and trying new experiences. But you guys are here for Heroku. So what's our goal for today? Our goal is to deploy a React app into Heroku. And here are some of the prerequisites we need before we do that. So to list them out, we're going to need Git installed on your computer. We're going to need Node installed in your computer. We're going to need Node package manager installed as well as Heroku command line interface. And I'm also going to need you guys to have 2 accounts. One is a GitHub account and one is a Heroku account. So I realized that some of you have all this stuff installed. Some of you might not. So not to worry, I'm going to be, David's going to send out this presentation out to you guys, and I've linked out the download links for each of those technologies. So you can definitely check them out after this workshop. Okay. So before we do all the fancy stuff, let's talk a little bit about server-side basics. So what is server-side exactly? Server-side is backend technologies which power your website. And Node.js is one of those backend frameworks that are quite popular out there right now. And it's an open source development platform for executing JavaScript code server-side. It's intended to run on a dedicated HTTP server, and Node applications are event-based and they run asynchronously. So what does all that mean? So initially JavaScript was started as a front-end framework, but there's an unwritten law in CS in which states that anything that can be built with JavaScript is going to be built with JavaScript. So eventually they made a backend framework as well. And it's asynchronous basically means that it doesn't have to follow a particular order. You can make requests out of order, so your users for your app don't feel like they have any downtime. Now we're going to look into what is Node Package Manager. So Node.js has various packages to make your life easier. And packages are essentially just pre-written scripts to perform a specific task, which you can install and use. So the thing with Node.js is that it's going to be incredibly difficult to kind of make everything from scratch, especially to make your web apps do what you want to do from scratch. That's why Node Package Managers has thousands of packages that you can just download and just get running with pretty easily. One of those packages are called Express, and Express is an open source Node.js web application framework, which is built on top of Node.js. Express helps us to set up routing and handle the request response cycle. So again, what does that mean? So when you have a web app, you'd have different routes that execute different commands within your application. So Express is going to be one of the most lightweight solutions in order to specify that. And we'll just brush past Express a little bit today, so you can get some sort of introduction towards that. Let's see, just go next. Okay, so here's the main event. So Heroku. What exactly is Heroku? Heroku is a free container-based cloud platform as a service. Developers use Heroku to deploy, manage, and scale modern apps. Okay, sweet. Yeah. So what is a container though? So a container is basically a piece of code that allows for operating system virtualization. So what that means is that if you write a piece of code, it's going to run on your particular computer, but you want it to work on all computers. So what Heroku does, it contains all the it takes all the executables, binary code, libraries, config files from your web application, and it deploys that onto from your local application, and deploys that over to the web. And Heroku has a pretty cool feature called the command line interface, and this allows you to create and manage Heroku apps directly from the terminal. And this is super easy to use. It's very intuitive, and you guys are gonna have a pretty easy time catching a hold of command line interface with Heroku. Okay, so here's the demo. So everyone just get comfortable, grab some coffee, or you can follow along. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna send everybody who has all these prerequisites available to you. I'm gonna send you a link to this document, and it's going to contain all these commands we're going to be using today. So you can follow along with me right now, or you could do it at your own time later on. And let's get started then. So before we do so, does anyone have any questions that I can answer immediately while I just set up Visual Studio? How's everyone feeling so far? Can I get a thumbs up or a message somewhere? Okay, sweet. Thank you, Harpreet. Thank you, Rasko. Okay, great. So here we are in my code editor right here. And I've actually, if you follow along with this particular, let me just open this. Yeah, so if you're following along with this particular sheet I've set up for you guys, I've already kind of skipped step 1 and 2. And let me just walk over what I did. So first thing, you want to make sure that your node and your npm is installed. So if you just type the commands node v and npm v, then you'll get to see the version that you're running on. And this is just a good way to see that your node environment is set up. Next thing, I opened a folder. I created a file. The file is called deployment app. And I've also run the script that creates your React app, a basic React app. So this is your script, and it takes about like 10 minutes for your React app to get set up. So that's why I kind of skipped those steps right now. And I got directly to step 3 right now. Just because I don't want you guys to have to look at a screen for 10 minutes without anything happening. But essentially, we're going to move over to the file that we want, and that's the deployment app. Let's navigate to that. Okay, now that we're here, we're going to run our command that's going to start the React app on our server, local server, and that's npm start. Yeah, so that basically means that, yeah. Yeah, okay, so I have to cd over to deploy app. And let's do that. So once you get to the folder that you are going to deploy from, you'll see a bunch of files here. One of them is node modules. And if I open that, you see a bunch of good stuff here. And this is the node library that I was telling you about. These are all the packages that we have installed. There's a bunch. You guys can look at it later on. But the one that we are interested in is the npm start. And now, as you can see, our React app is going to run. And it's going to take a few minutes. So in the meanwhile, we're just going to set up our Git repository. So I'm just going to move over to GitHub. I'm going to start a new repository here. And I'm going to name this, React. Oops. Oh, okay. So what just happened is our React app opened up, the one that we just built. And as you can see, it's a very basic React app. It just has a message here, Heroku deployment workshop in progress, which is great. And as you can see, this is running in localhost 3000. So essentially what that means is your computer has many different ports for local servers to run. And local server means that only you are creating a server for yourself to view and access. But we want this website to be shared on the web so everyone can view your project, right? This is not a very assuming project here, but let's say you had a really cool project. You want employers to see it, potential interviewers, or your friends. So definitely we want to see how we can deploy this over to the web. So I'm going to create a repository here. We're going to call it React app Heroku deploy. Okay. And it's available. And you can add a README and all that good stuff when you're making your own project, but just for sake of demo, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to create this repository. Sweet. Now that you have your repository set up, what we're going to do is this React app, we're going to push it over to this Git repository. So let's go over here to my code editor, and let's run some commands to push over our website over to GitHub. Right. So we want to again navigate over to where we were. So cd deployment test. Let's cd deploy app. Okay, and now we're going to initialize that Git repository, the one we created, and it's just done like this. Okay, so now we initialize the repository, and we're gonna make we're gonna add all our files that we just made. Git add. Sweet. And now we're gonna make our first commit. So you do that by typing git. Let me just make some more space here for you guys. Git commit m first commit. So now we've made a commit here. And now here's the fun part. We're gonna push this over to the main branch. And let's do that. Git branch main. And now here we're gonna add, now we're gonna, so now Git's not gonna know where in all of GitHub that it's supposed to be pushing this project to, but this remote add origin is gonna tell it, you need to push all this code over to this repository. Remote origin already exists, great. So that means you can check if your remote was already put in place by typing git remote. Okay. So we already have our our origin set up, so that's great. And then we're gonna push it over to the origin main. I think we might be, let's see if it sets up. Okay, let's see if it got sent over. Okay, so I think we have it going over to the wrong repository. Perhaps it has been set to another repository I've opened up. So let's debug that. Deploy. Okay, let's just go back a second. Deployment. Okay, I see what happened. So I pushed it over to the wrong file. So that's an easy fix. We just go over to deployment. So essentially what happened is I pushed over the files to another sort of Git repository. I meant to push this one over. So I'm just going to do that. Okay, deployment app, cool. So I think this is the place we want to be pushing to, but before we do that, let's just make sure that the Git repository remote has not been set up here. Git remote. Okay, so that means we have no remote repository initialized here. So now we're gonna do it here now. So when you're building apps, like debugging is just a very common piece. And let's see if we did any good now. Let's see if it gets added remote now. Now we can type git remote. Okay, so now we've set up a remote repository called origin, and we're going to push this over to that repository. Okay, so that's happening right now. Okay, now we can test that going over here. Okay, sweet. So all the code from my local file has been pushed over to GitHub in this repository called React App Heroku Deploy, which is awesome. Now, okay, so what's next on the roadmap? Yeah, so now we're gonna go over to Heroku CLI and check if it's been installed. So for those of you wondering what Heroku CLI is, you can just follow this link that that's provided in the files for the presentation, and it takes you to the website for Heroku CLI. So I already have it installed, so I'm just gonna test that, and you can test that by this command right here. One second. Oops. Okay. By for those of you following along, you'd go over to number 6, step number 6, and you just type Heroku login. Okay, so now it's saying press any key to open up the browser or login or Q to exit. So I'm just gonna press F. You can press anything. And now you can see my web app, my browser has opened up the Heroku login form, and you just hit login. So I'm just going to log in right here, and Heroku is free to create an account on. There's some features which are only for premium plans, but in my experience with Heroku, a lot of the features that you need, especially for making personal projects, are freely available. So you don't have to worry about having some issues with premium tiers. Okay, so it says we've logged in now, and you can close this page and return to your command line interface. It should now be logged in. Sweet. Okay, so it says in my command line, you have logged in as shibam@salixmedical.com. Sweet. So that means I know I've logged in now. So what's next? We're going to go into Heroku login, and we're gonna go into the dashboard. All right, let's try. Just gonna take a minute. Sweet. So here we are in my Heroku dashboard, and this is my personal folder in which I create my personal projects. And we're gonna create one right here, right now. With a new, create new app. We're gonna call this one web design. Spell decline. Deployment. Oh, I have to have small case. Oops, name will start with the lowercase as well. Okay, there we go. And for region, you only have 2 options: United States, Europe. So you're gonna go with United States. Don't worry about pipelines. This is more of a continuous integration, continuous deployment kind of feature. You don't have to worry about that too much for most of your hackathon projects. Okay, let's say open app. So if you try that, it should not allow you to have anything in there. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we've already logged in, and next thing we're gonna do is we're already in the project. Okay, now we're gonna look into something called Express, and let's just do that right now. Okay, so now I change this over to Heroku, but let's say you have, so the thing is, you have this public build over here, and public build is basically what you're going to be deploying over to your website. And it's important that in your public build, you kind of, let's say you have certain API settings, authentication and stuff, you kind of wanted to send it over to Heroku for deployment. So in order to do that, you just create an Express file. I'm going to do that right now. So right outside that, new file. Okay, we don't want this to be inside source. Just say new file. Okay, I'm gonna call this express.js. Okay, and I'm gonna move it over here. Yes. Great. So now we're gonna create our first Express. We're gonna incorporate Express into our app now. So just some code we're gonna write first. We're gonna kind of get Express in from npm, and you do that by doing require. It's very easy, right? Const app is equal to Express. So now your app is initialized with the Express plugin. Great. And now we're gonna do this. So we want to kind of tell the browser where it needs to open. So we're gonna import the path or 5000. So what this means is that either Express is gonna provide you a port, or you do 5000, because port 5000 is just a common port. So let's just do that. Const path equals process.env.port or 5000. So essentially, again, what this is doing is it's going to open up on 5000, but if in case 5000 is busy, it's going to open up a new one. Okay, I'm gonna just paste some code right here now to save you guys some of the time and explain it after. Yeah, so what is this doing right here? So this line in line number 9, if process.env.node environment is production. So what does production mean? Production is your, so you have two kinds of environments. One is just a development environment and there's a production environment. So this is why we're using Express, because you're going to be pushing this over to Heroku, and Heroku would be a production environment. So if you're going to be pushing it over to your production environment, I'm saying that Express should use a build file, and that build file should get all sorts of folders from our build, and send it over to your website as index or HTML. So that's fine. Okay. So now we're gonna, once your server is running, we want it to be showing the public folder like this one. And finally, this is just a step for debugging in case you have any errors in your server. But what this is doing is, if your server is already running on a specified port, show an error message. Yeah, so again, it's listening into your port, and it's listening if it's already running. Then we want to kind of showcase an error saying that server is already running on port 5000. So try a different port. But we already kind of handled that in the initial steps. So hopefully everything is looking good here, and we can try it out. Still looking fine. And if you want to just test if everything is working on your server, then you can just type nodemon express. Yeah. So now, I guess we have an error here. Okay, we're missing a semicolon, which is very typical. So let's try that again. So let's see what's going on here.
Hello.
Hi.
You have an extra S on your Express at the very top.
Oh, there we go. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, sweet. So yeah, stuff like that always happens when programming. So you can be spending hours debugging things. It's just It's rare to pair. It's a gear to pair program. So, stuff like that is easily found. But yeah, so our server is running on port 5000. That means everything's looking good. Now, guys, we're going to initialize our Heroku remote. So how do we do that? We log back into Heroku. Dashboard. Great. And deployment. So this is the one we created. Okay. Oh, wait, what? Yeah. Deployment. So guys, let's initialize our Git repository and initialize the remote to point to Heroku now. Okay, so we have 2 of these already running. We can stop our server. We don't need that anymore. Git init. Okay, reinitialized the Git. And now we're going to add a remote. Sweet. So as you guys can see, we set the remote to Heroku. Now let's try seeing if both our remotes, if you remember, we set one remote over to GitHub and another remote over to Heroku. So let's see, hopefully we have both of them. Git remote. Okay, sweet. So as you guys can see, we have both our remote repository set up. And now we are going to add our changes. We're going to commit, and then we're going to push it over to Heroku master. Let's do that. Git add Brian Lee. Sweet. So let's do that right now. We're going to do git add. Now we're going to do git set a message. So we will say first Heroku commit. Okay, so I've committed all the changes. Oh, error. Not much. Okay. Let's try that again. Am I missing something again? Oh, we need this AM. Interesting. Yeah. Let's try that again. Oh, okay. I see what's happening. Let's try that. Let's clear this. Maybe the dash needs to connect it to the yeah, exactly. I'm just going to try and take the command that they sent over here. Okay, sometimes it's just funny like that. Miss things. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I would change this commit message to something more meaningful, right? Obviously, I just used the one that they had right there. And then finally, here's our final step in deployment. Let's try doing that right now. Yeah, okay. So sometimes, so before you do this, you need to kind of, since we push some stuff into GitHub, you kind of have to pull for changes. You got to make sure that you already put something to GitHub, so you got to pull it first, and then you try it again. Try pushing it now. Oh, is it Heroku main? Okay. Yeah. So Heroku has adopted the main. There's adopted a name change from master to main as well for their branches, and that's what's there was. So I think everything's looking good. That means, as you can see right here, it means all of our packages are being deployed over in a container and being sent over to Heroku. And within a couple of minutes, we should be seeing that on the World Wide Web where everyone can access it. So in the meanwhile, while that's happening, how's everyone feeling so far? Was this pretty digestible? Can I hear some comments in the chat? Okay, sweet. Thanks, Caitlin. Yeah, don't worry about it. React is a whole nother beast, but essentially, this workshop was not really geared towards React, so I don't really expect you guys to learn a lot about React this workshop. But the good news is that we did have a React workshop last year, and that workshop went over a lot of the basics in React. You can find that in the if you search. It was the YouTube channel, so you'll find video going over all the React basics, similar to Expo. Sorry, Saeed, I'm not very familiar with Expo, so I'm not sure. But Heroku is very similar to any sort of cloud platform that deploys apps. So it's similar to Netlify, it's similar to AWS. I've experience with all three of them, and I think Heroku is like the cheapest and the fastest one. So definitely Heroku is nice. But again, I'm not sure about Expo. And Simon, I'm gonna see if David can send a link to last year's React workshop. It will be very helpful for beginners to learn about React. Okay, so guys, it looks like everything has been deployed. Now let's try and see if that's the case. Okay, so it says released, follow link. Let's try, see what's up. Okay, guys, so as you can see, web deployment, Heroku workshop.herokuapp.com. So we've successfully deployed our Heroku app to the web, and now anyone can access it. So great work, guys. Now let's go back into our presentation and finish some last few points, which is going to be helpful for you all when you're making your projects. Okay, so now let's recap what we did today, because we went through a lot. First thing, either you create your own React app or you clone it from a Git repository, if in case you're working on a team. And next thing is you want to create you want to create a GitHub repository and push your code over to it. Maybe step 2, you don't have to do that if in case the repository is already existing, if you've cloned it from an existing repository. But in my case, I didn't, so I had to push it over. And the next thing is you have to add Express file to manage production environments, which we looked at a little bit previously. And then we logged in with Heroku CLI in the terminal. And then we created a project in your Heroku dashboard. And then we initialized our Heroku repo. And then we add, commit, and push changes over to Heroku for all the users to try it out. So guys, I have a question for you all. I'm gonna get to that shortly. So let's talk about the workflow, how Heroku works. So you have your computer, and here you're making all your changes. You're testing it locally. You know, you're building your cool projects, and you like what you're seeing. And okay, you decide now I want to send this over to GitHub so my teammates can use it and work on it too. So you push it over to GitHub. We're quite used to that at this point. And also, you know, once your teammates have made a change, you can pull your code back to your local environment, again, build some stuff there. And you can do this process on loop until you guys are happy with your website or your applications. And then finally, once that's all looking good, you push it over to Heroku. And that was the crux of today's workshop. And that's what we looked at today, pushing over to Heroku. But I have a question for you. And the question is, the changes that I push over to GitHub over here, is that going to reflect on the changes that I push over to Heroku? Let's see in the chat if anyone has any answer to that. So if I push some code over to GitHub, are those changes going to be reflected on my Heroku app? Anyone has a guess? Exactly. That is a good answer. So they do not talk to each other. So whatever you push over to from whatever we push over to GitHub is not going to be reflected on Heroku. So you got to make sure that you are doing the process of committing and pushing changes to both remotes in order to see that reflected. So yeah, that basically, guys, in very shortly brings us to the end of this workshop. I've provided some additional resources here. This is a link to all the commands I use in this tutorial. And also I've also sent, this is a video I liked about how you can deploy apps on Netlify. But I think that's basically it. It's a very short and sweet workshop. Just wanted to make sure that you guys learn the basics about web deployment. And we are open for any questions or anything from David.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Shubham, for running the workshop. I'm just going to repost the event registration form once again in the chat. Feel free to fill that out if you want to be entered for the chance to win some prizes. We'll do a quick draw. But before that, yeah, does anybody have any more questions for Shubham?
Yeah, so George has a pretty yeah, okay. So we have two questions here. First is from George. Would we normally configure a pipeline to push to Heroku if build succeeded? Yeah, so that's something that a lot of companies, if you have a team of 7 or 8 developers, you want to make sure that all your test cases are passing before you push it over to Heroku. So in that case, you would have a build pipeline. But for hackathon projects, which was kind of the theme of our event, StormHacks, you don't necessarily need to have a pipeline or anything like that established, because it's just overhead which you could be directing towards your project. Jason has a question. There are probably many ways to make web apps, I assume. I was just wondering, what were the benefits and reasons for using this method over another? So when you mean this method, could you specify what you're referring to with this? Are you referring to React? Are you referring to Heroku? Or are you referring to Express? Because there's advantages and disadvantages for all of them. Is Heroku free for students? Yes, Heroku is free. You can, they have a free tier for everyone. And a lot of the stuff that I went over today, it's freely accessible to everyone who's on Heroku. They have, as George mentioned, some advanced pipeline features, which you'll have to have kind of a company account, but most of the free stuff is accessible to everyone. But yeah, Jason, just looking up for a follow-up on your question. Yeah, that's a free plan. But yeah, anyone else, if you have any questions, you can open up the mic and we can chat. Anything StormHacks related, not just Heroku, it's all good. Yeah, so Heroku automatically assigns a domain for the website. Yeah, sure. So Heroku automatically assigns a domain. Yes, exactly. So it assigns a domain based on the project name you created, .heroku app. So it kind of creates on the back end like a domain for you, initialize all that stuff, so you don't have to worry about it. Why? Okay, so next question from Jason is, oh, sweet. So the thing with React is that if you're creating a website and okay, so there's a lot of advantages, disadvantages using different web frameworks, but the best part about React is that it renders before it's being sent over to your before it's sent to the browser. So what that means is that it's really quick. So every time you make a request, it's instead of updating it, instead of going back to the server, updating and sending it back, it kind of handles a lot of the heavy lifting on the browser itself. So things are just really fast that way. And in terms of Heroku, Heroku is just free. So it's just very popular among students, but I personally use AWS a lot. So when it comes to deployment, I like S3 deployment on AWS. But again, it's just open to anyone's preferences. Okay, I think that's everyone's question.